Welcome back, everybody. Cappuccino behind the scenes here of another great episode of Roger That Chronicles. Hey, listen, if you like what you see here today, go in the old Google box, YouTube, 216 Creator Studios, like, share, subscribe, ding that bell for the future notification. Always appreciating the support. Listen, if you like what you see on the show, put a comment in the show. Let us know what you like about it. If you don't like the show, don't watch it. Not just kidding. That's just a cappuccino joke. Hey, listen, go ahead. We want to improve the show all the time. So if there's something that you think is a waste of time, put it in there too. We're not afraid to grow and learn. And so today with Cris and Josh, we have a special guest here. Not his first rodeo here, but actually in person. So we're excited about having him at the table for a good table talk. But first, Josh, how you been?
Doing pretty good. Been very busy.
Yeah.
Doing a lot of different outreach.
You've been doing the kayaking. That's that time of year, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Kayaking.
nice.
We started up Friday's hikes again. Just came back from VFW State Convention. So it's been a very busy spring for me.
Yeah, I bet. I like watching you guys hike while I eat donuts on the sidelines. It's kind of fun. Cris, how about you?
Howdy. We're doing well. We're keeping busy. We started up our Coffee Connect, which has really been a great program. We've got probably about 10 women in the group, and we're meeting twice a month now. So
you know a guy named Cappuccino, but he didn't get an invite to the Coffee Connect.
Sorry.
What are we doing here? Do you not know I'm the life of the party? That's okay.
I do know this.
Right. The guy who talks about an apple for an hour. Maybe I should lay off the coffee a little bit, right? So who are we talking about today? What are we doing here?
Yeah, so today we've got Mark Hutson. He is a Army veteran. So he is live with us today. Last time he was on screen, so we could just barely see you. So we're glad to have you in person today.
Yeah, it's always, having you in person, being here in person is a huge difference.
Absolutely. Yes, it is.
And before we get deep dive onto you, let's talk about your organization real quick.
Oh, yeah. So
that's kind of a big deal.
I know. I just went right over it, didn't I?
Well, so did I. So I'm just excited to have him here, is literally what it is.
I know. We want to welcome everybody. Veterans Network Association is a 501(c)(3) nonprofit organization supporting veterans who are transitioning from the military to civilian life. We help them and encourage them and their families to have a purposeful and healthy lives. During that transition, it's sometimes pretty difficult. As a Marine mom, I kind of saw firsthand what a veteran can go through emotionally and mentally during that process. And it's different for everybody, but there's still stuff to deal with, So our main purpose is to save lives. And so we do that by having different programs, the support groups like the Coffee Connect. We have workshops and events. And our last pillar that we have is spreading hope, which Roger That Chronicles funnels right into that perfectly, because a veteran could be hearing the stories on the show and then be encouraged by whatever a veteran is sharing. I mean, we never know what anybody's going to say on the show.
Right.
We never know what's going to happen, and some people share some really deep things, different struggles that they've gone through. And that's super encouraging for another veteran to hear that, who may be going through the same thing, so spreading hope is huge. And
I like to say that you're both the connective tissue for welcoming home our troops. As I have heard several times from veterans, they're like, man, I couldn't wait to get out so I can go get that one Portillo sandwich that I always wanted, it was the one or two things, and they did that, and then they were just like floating around, not knowing where to go or what to do. And then life seemed different because they were so trained. And so being the connective tissue is really important, because you are the outreach for, hey, I'm back. How do I retrain? And how do I calm down? How do I get back? How do I become useful to society and create that purpose for myself? So that's how I announce you guys. I hope that's Okay.
Yep.
But it's a simple math problem to me. It's like, hey, listen, if you come out, regardless if you think you're fine or not, reach out, let them know you're back. That way you can see the programs. That way you can see, even if you're okay, how you can attend and help others grow that and build the network while you're back too. So I think
right. It's getting your new battle buddy in
correct.
your community, and connecting with other veterans in the community.
Yep. Nico's my battle buddy. That's all. I just call him buddy though. We don't really go into battle. Okay, now it's time to bring him in. I'm excited. Fire it up.
Oh, very good. Very good. Well, we're so glad that you could join us today.
It's absolutely a pleasure to be here for sure.
So why don't you go ahead and just start a little bit telling us about what you did? How about, why did you join the Army?
Oh, goodness. I think, in the last podcast we were talking about, needing a sense of direction. And so, I mean, that was primarily it. Needed to, just needed a sense of direction in my life. And, and that surely gave it to me for sure. So, but so.
And so then what was that journey like? Like, how long did you serve and what did you do?
It was about 7 years. I was with, after basic, was with the 1st Division, 1st Infantry Division. And we did, most of our training we did 2 reforgers, which was, return of forces to Germany. And we did desert training out in the Mojave Desert. And then I was selected to go to the Drill Instructor Academy at Fort Benning, Georgia. And so went through the academy. And after that, luckily I was stationed at Fort Benning, Georgia, where I served 2 years as a drill instructor. So, and in that time, I had the opportunity to go to Airborne School and Air Assault School. So, it was a really, really a lot of good lessons learned in my time in the service. So, yeah.
That is a lot of different things in there. Which one was your favorite?
What was my favorite? What? Being a drill instructor. Yeah, I always say, because it was, I always say, people say it was like the hardest 2 years of my life. And people say, well, isn't it the other way around? But, I always say, when you first join, you're getting direction, right, and guidance. And in the last 2 years, I was giving direction and guidance. And it was such a, for myself, it was such a, rewarding time of my life, quite honestly. Yeah, such a rewarding time. So to see taking guys from day one through, we had them, they called it OSUT training, which is one station unit training. So we had them from basic through AIT. So we, our cycles were like, 13 weeks long. So, we had, we shared a lot of time together. We'll say that.
So with that being said, so I went down to Fort Benning, Georgia, home of the infantry, for basic and AIT, and went through OSAT, where it's just one continuous thing.
Sure.
With those relationships that you build with the new incoming soldiers, like how is that different from when? Was there any difference in that when you were at like a duty station when soldiers were coming in, like, because you ultimately played a role in how they were developed? Like, did you take anything that you learned from when you went to a duty station? It was like, okay, this is something that I would like to help navigate better.
Sure. Well, actually, ironically, the 2 years that I served as a drill instructor were my last 2 years in service. So I never had the application afterwards, but yeah.
Now, what about beforehand? So like when you went through basic, was there anything that you wish you would have known when getting to your duty station that you were able to share with your incoming?
I think it's a lot of, for myself, going through basic, went to Fort, I did my basic at Fort Benning, Georgia, and so it was the first time I had ever been on a plane to get to basic. It was, quite honestly, the first, obviously, long period of time that I was away from home. And so, it was, everything was unknown. I didn't know anything about the service, quite honestly, about the process of going through basic training and advanced training and then going to a duty station. Everything for me was new. So which, it was, it was just a very interesting time in my life for sure. Yeah. But yeah. So.
And then
Go ahead.
And then from there, fast forward a lot of, not a lot,
many years,
many years of
I would say,
experience. I met you 2 years ago, I believe now, when at a presentation of the Gold Star family.
Oh, sure.
Of the plan for Crystal Lake and what you had presented.
Yes.
What path led you to such a defined mission?
Well, so quite honestly, so my wife Christine, we have an antique business, and so it was just, I don't want to say luck. It was coincidental. It was meant to be, however we want to label it. We went to a farm auction out in Union, and this is 2012, I think, and so we were there to look for antiques, right? And there was an old dairy barn on the property, and there was this old cabinet in the dairy barn, and there was nothing in the cabinet. As a matter of fact, the glass door, they were all broken out, and there was nothing in the cabinet except for when I looked in the very bottom drawer, I pulled it forward, and out rolled this flag. Now, at the time, I didn't really know. I knew it had a military connection, but I didn't really know what it was. And so I always say, the service flag cost me, $350, right? And the service flag came with the cabinet, and so took it home, and I started to do like a little bit of research on it. It's like, really, what is this? What does it mean? And so, certainly through, just simple, just going through different websites, learned, that, it's tradition from World War I, that, the meaning of the blue star, that obviously it's a loved one that's serving in the military during a time of conflict or war. And then the gold star is if your loved one was killed or died during service. Right. And so it just really stuck with me, part of it, my military background, right. Part of it was the history, which, the history of the service flag, and quite honestly, that it's still a tradition, today. And I always say during World War II, it was the second most popular flag, so that led to gathering a massive collection of not only service flags, but there's service flag posters. There was service flag sheet music. University, especially during World War I, the number of universities that had their own service flags, they had all the stars sewn on for their, for students and for faculty. And and so it was just, I wanted to tell everybody and, teach everybody about the history of the service flag. And so Cris and I, we amassed this massive collection. And instead of letting it sit in bins and boxes and in storage, we decided to take it on the road. And so for several years, we traveled to different locations throughout the country. Like we were talking before, went to, a VA hospital in Manhattan, New York. We went to Toccoa, Georgia, where if you're a Band of Brothers junkie, that's where the 506 trained. Libraries and museums and so for several years, we traveled around and we just, put up this massive, display of service flags, and we, talked about the history, told stories. And then because I'm a veteran, I was able to present service flags to families as well. So,
Wow.
So it was just kind of a nice, really just everything just kind of mixed together very well. So, yeah.
Now, how much time would you say I'm so sorry.
That's what I was going to ask. So,
do you think you've spent on doing the research that you have? You have an extensive amount of research for anybody that didn't watch last episode that you were on of not only the service member, where they were at, but the way they may have died. What other missions they were on, what relative things that led to different tides
Sure.
and things like that. How many hours do you have
Oh,
into
goodness.
just that?
Oh, I mean, the hours and quite honestly, the cost as well. And you guys are pretty fortunate that the show is only 45 minutes long, because I could probably talk for hours and hours on this. So essentially there's what we have now is there's two websites. One is serviceflagtradition.com, and that is solely dedicated to the history of the service flag. And I would say probably 60 to 70% of the collection is on the website, to include, I work with like 40 universities and their archive department, and they actually went in their archives and pulled out, the service flags that they displayed during World War I and II. So that
Wow.
website is solely dedicated to the service flag. And then the new one is the McHenry County Gold Star Legacies.com. And I will say, excuse me, one of the things that was really frustrating when I would purchase a service flag, especially the larger ones, that there was no history behind it. There was, and some of these flags that we have in our collection, it's about 16, 17 feet high, 10 foot wide, and it's got 1,013 stars on it. And through all the research, I can only find the names of maybe 20 of the guys that were represented by the stars. And so it was very frustrating. I would look at a service flag and think about, purchasing it, and it would have, could have anywhere from 20, 30, 40 stars on it. And, I would talk to the guy who's, selling it, and he'd say, well, we think it came from a church. Well, we think it came from a business. They didn't know.
Right.
And so one of the things that I thought that was really necessary for our county, McHenry County, was to, one, have a service flag, a Gold Star service flag, right? That's the visual part of it. But then to have the companion website along with it. So we have the 295 gold stars sewn on the service flag, but now the companion website, every one of those 295 fallen has their own webpage, and so the point of that is to connect gold stars with the story, with the person, with the real story. And that's what we've accomplished at this point. So
if you want to learn more,
Mhm.
folks, those links will all be in the description below.
So I just want to backtrack and get a little timeline going here. So you were in the military for about 7 years, and then you started the antiques, really is what
Sure.
started first. So did you start that as soon as you got out of the military, or
it was
what was?
pretty close. It was when I met Christine, my wife, and she was, she had done, antiques with her parents, since she was, just a little kid. So, I was not into antiques, not because I didn't want to, I just didn't know anything about it.
Oh,
Right?
okay.
And so she's the one that got me, going into the antiques, and then that just, that turned into a whole
And
thing.
then the flag thing turned into your thing.
And then the flag turned into and then she's hung with me with all the traveling that we've done. And she's been, just wonderful, because it's not only, it's not only getting there, right?
Mhm.
So wherever that may be. And like I say, we did, Atlanta, New York, Salt Lake, Utah, Branson, Missouri. That's just a little bit of the challenge, is getting from point A to point B.
And then
but when you
setting
get
up
to point B,
everything.
it is an insane amount of work. When we did the event at the VA in Manhattan, New York, obviously we're driving downtown New York in Manhattan, and we get to the hospital, we had to pull into a dock, but then we had to take everything in the 16-foot trailer. We had to go down the hall, up the elevators, into the lobby. It was just, it is a colossal amount of work to do it.
You needed a moving crew to help you.
Absolutely. And every event, it was the same, because, like I say, we would typically display, I'd say on average, 30, 40 flags, plus, all the different, easels with all the different posters. It's a tremendous amount of work. But,
Wow.
yeah.
So how long was it that you collected the flags and you were doing your traveling flag display.
Mhm.
You wrote a book in
Mhm.
that time period or afterward?
So that was during that time period. So, we always, I would always tell stories about, our veterans when we would do these displays. And one of the stories that I often told was the Sullivan Brothers. And I would just one evening, I was kind of looking, researching, just trying to find some, real fine details on their story. And I just literally stumbled upon the name Borgstroms, and I had never heard of them. Not that I should have, but I just never heard of the family. And they were a family from Utah, Tremont, Utah, and they had lost 4 of their 5 sons within 6 months, and 2 of them were just twins. They were just 19 years old, and so I ended up calling out to the. I think I started with the library in Tremont and trying to find, just who, is there someone from the family I could talk to? Then the Chamber of Commerce, and they connected me to this lady. Her name was Roberta Frank, and she's like the town historian, just wonderful lady. And I talked to Roberta. I said, hey, we'd like to come out. I said, we'll come out and we'll do all our service flag display, but is there any way that you can connect me with one of the family members? I'd really like to talk with them if they'd be so willing. And she said, well, I can't, she said, I can't guarantee you that any family member will come, or, she said, but I can guarantee you hot meals and a place to stay. So off we went, and, that was a tough trip because we blew a $7,000 transmission in Salt Lake City.
Oh, wow.
And so it was, not only a long way, it was a very expensive trip. And so we set up the flag display on a Friday, and that Saturday morning, I always say it was like a Borgstrom family reunion. And many members of the family came, and we spent the day traveling around Tremont, and we went to the farmhouse where the family grew up. We went to the church where the service was for the boys, and then the last place we went was the cemetery where the mother, the father, and the boys are buried. And I don't know why I did, but I did. Randy was the one son came home, Boyd. He had a lot of trouble in life, but he got married and they had a family, and one of his sons, Randy, was with us that day. And was literally standing at the gravesite of the mother and father. And I told Randy, I made a promise. I'm going to write the book about your family. And 5 years later, we got it published. So,
Wow.
Yeah.
And what is the name of your book?
So Costly a Sacrifice. Yeah. And it's everything in the book. It's a true story. There's been many things that have happened. We actually did signed a contract with the director, and unfortunately, nothing turned out about it. But we were honored. Quite honestly, we were very honored. We had the Chicago Writers Association nonfiction book of the year. And
Wow.
and they call it, I think it's the New York City Big Book Award. We were one of the distinguished favorites. So, the point is just we really want that story out there.
Yes.
It's an easy read, quite honestly, very easy read. It's not that long. It's only a couple hundred pages, but everything in that book is factual. So,
If someone wanted to read that, where would they find it?
you can get it on Amazon.
Amazon?
And you can also get it on the one website that I have is the serviceflagtradition.com website.
Perfect. Yep, those links will be in the description below. Before we jump into the next questions, we are hitting that halfway marker. I believe Josh has something to tell us.
Yeah, absolutely. So
Let's see if you can talk better than me.
yeah. I work for Veterans Path to Hope out of Crystal Lake. We're in McHenry County organization. We also reach out to other counties. Within that organization, we have 10 different programs. I am a case manager for one of those programs, Staff Sergeant Fox Suicide Prevention Program. And I also do a lot of work within another program that we do is our outdoors program, which is we connect veterans with recreational activities, whether it be e-gaming, fishing, kayaking, hiking, or if we have someone present that they would like to try a hunting trip, we have definitely been able to supply those veterans with other organizations that actually do those hunting trips. Couple of other programs that we have within our establishment or our organization is HVRP, which helps veterans with employment, SSVF, which helps veterans and their families with housing. We have New Horizons, which is a sober living facility that helps veterans that may have came from homelessness or at risk of homelessness. Also ones that are looking for a sober jumpstart to, being reintroduced to society or being reintroduced back into society. We assist with that service. So we have a 20-room it used to be an old hotel in Hebron, and it's now New Horizons. So we have 22 rooms. We have case managers out there. We have transportation services for those residents. And we also have other programs like our Veterans Path to Hope Gaming, which utilizes e-gaming as a way to connect and build camaraderie. We also partner with people like Cris in the VNA, the VAC, American Legion, VFWs. That's why I was actually down at State Convention presenting the VPH gaming and all our other services. Few things that are upcoming events is always we have a Wednesday's dinner at our Crystal Lake location. Every other Tuesday we have a Tuesday dinner out in Ingleside for the landing zone, which is our Lake County location. June 30th we will be doing a dinner in a picnic in the park at the there's a main park in Grays Lake. We will be doing it at. I wish I had the address or remembered the address.
We'll find that out. That'll be in the description as well.
Thank you. And we have our upcoming first Tuesday of the month gaming event coming up. Something very particular to what I work with, which is suicide prevention. We're partnering with Rock to Stop 22, is an organization in Wisconsin that is putting on a music festival August 21st through the 23rd. And we're partnering with them to bring out some case managers and see how much we can provide assistance out there.
That's awesome. If I was a veteran in need and I just got back from being in the service for, let's say, 5 years, and I need help being reintroduced into society, where would I go for that? Would I reach out to you or?
So there's a few different opportunities. Absolutely reach out to Veterans Path to Hope at veteranspathtohope.com or check us out on our Facebook website. But ultimately, Veterans Path to Hope isn't everywhere. So if you're going somewhere outside of Illinois or McHenry County, Lake County, Winnebago, basically Veterans Path to Hope services almost the whole northern border of Illinois and the southern border of Wisconsin. Outside of there, if you are looking for resources, community, camaraderie, I would connect with your your local county veteran service officer, reach out to the VA and see if there's any established organizations out there that fit your needs. There's also other organizations like the Fallen Outdoors. They are a national organization that brings veterans out on hunting trips, fishing trips, and are very well. They work a lot with connecting veterans with services, advocating for them as well as we do, the VNA and VPH. So
that's awesome.
100%. Get connected with your county veteran service officer.
I didn't even know we had a county veteran service officer.
So here we have a VAC, which is a Veterans Assistance Commission. That isn't just an Illinois thing. However, there's other states that don't have a VAC. There's counties that can that are too small or don't have the funding to operate a VAC.
And
But
they
there
may not
is-
necessarily be called VAC, but
Right.
there's still an veteran assistant program.
Yes.
Okay, so basically wherever you are in the United States,
Yeah.
there is someone that you can find to help with services.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And the easiest way is to Google local county VSO, and that'll give you whether or not your county has a VAC.
Okay. Perfect. Awesome. Alrighty. Without further ado, back to you, Mark.
More punishment?
No. Okay, so now you've done the book, you're doing the flags, and now you have this website. How did you
Yes.
get to this website, and what all is included in all of
Yeah.
that?
So the
Fully loaded. It's like a
yeah.
fully loaded big potato.
Yeah, here we go. So the first I had the idea to create, as we were kind of talking before, the county service flag. Okay. And
But why?
well, I think it's one, it's part of a tradition, right? Longstanding tradition. That again, it's still something that is, a tradition still to this day. And wanted a different way to recognize all the fallen service members from McHenry County. And I thought a good visual of that, way to represent that was with the McHenry County Gold Star service flag. So that was the first idea. Okay.
Doesn't the county already have a flag?
No, there's articles that I could find from 1918 that talk about a McHenry. It would say the county service flag. Or the article would be talking about a fallen service member, and the article would read something to the effect of, another fallen service member is added to the county's service flag. Okay, so I can find several articles about that. But I can tell you there's not one that exists. And quite honestly, a lot of, communities in World War I and II had service flags. And most of those they've disappeared. Okay. And so just wanted a visual representation that really struck someone's eye. And I say that because when we would do our displays, typically, the larger service flags, they would get a lot of attention. People with a lot of pictures, right? And as soon as you walk in the room where we did our display, we were set up it was just such a visual attraction. So I thought, well, let's create a McHenry County Gold Star service flag. So, but the important information that you have to know is, who are they? And that just led me down a rabbit hole, quite honestly. And it has been a couple of years of just a tremendous amount of research. Because what would happen is, in the Northwest Herald, they would print, like on Memorial Day, they would just print, a list of all the names of all the fallen. And that's good. I mean, that's good that they do that, but we need, I felt a need to recognize and kind of tell the story behind each of the names. So first I had to find out, how accurate was that list. So that was step one. And that is, again, that's been a 2-year project, just trying to validate the names that they had, trying to discover any names that they didn't have. And then what I wanted to do was create this website that was the companion website that had a web page for every one of our fallen. One of the unique things about the website is, and I really think it's literally like the first of its kind, is at the bottom of each web page, I use the image of a footlocker. And so when you click on the footlocker, it takes you to another download page. And every document, every file that I have been able to uncover and gather for each of the fallen service members is in that folder that anyone can download. Now, a lot of those documents you can find on Fold 3 and Ancestry, and different reputable websites. But one of the unique things about what we did was to work with the National Archives and have what they call burial case files and IDPF files. So burial case files are from World War I, and the IDPF files are from World War II. And what those files, the purpose of those files was primarily the disposition of the remains. But what I have found is in those files is just some incredible stories. Certainly a lot of information. I was able to then validate, right? Several different things. So I've kind of done the footwork for everyone that if they have interest in our fallen service members, put it in one consolidated folder that's available to anybody at any time. And so at this point, if for all our fallen in McHenry County, if there's a burial case file or if there's an IDPF file, I have it. I'm now working on what they call the OMPF files, which is the official military personnel files. Those can be a little bit lengthier, and that's just a whole nother process to get those files. But the idea was to have one local, right, single location where people could locate that information. And the hope is that people take interest, whether that's students, researchers, family, that we've done our due diligence to gather as much information as possible. And I will tell you, in some of these burial case files, now most of the OMPF files, there was a fire at the archives in 73, and 79% of the files were lost. Okay, of the Army and the Army Air Corps. Marines and the Navy were actually, I believe it was the 5th floor. So most of those files survived. And I never even knew this before I started this project. I never even heard of burial case files. I've never heard of the IDPF files, but they were, I believe, stored at a different location. So all these files survived. And I can tell you some of the information and some of the stories that are in these files are just incredible. And some of these files, quite honestly, is, when I go down to the archives, I feel like I'm literally like the first person that has looked at any of these files in 100 plus years. So, especially from World War I.
And it's their story of what happened to them,
so,
right? What they
sure.
experienced.
Oh, and in some of these files, they have, most of the files they'll have like where they were killed or where they died. They'll have where they were temporarily buried, and some of the files, literally, the guy was, he was killed in action, and they literally dug a grave right on the side of the road and put a white cross, and so they explain exactly where they're at. In some of the files that I have, there's literally like a hand-drawn map of where the fallen service member is buried. There's information about some of them are eyewitness accounts of exactly how the fallen service member was killed. And I've probably told the story 100 times about three of McHenry County fallen service members were on one of the Japanese hell ships, the Harrison Maru. And one of the files, there was 9 survivors of this almost 1,800 men on the ship. There were 9 survivors of the torpedoing of the hell ship. 5 ultimately came home because 4 were recaptured by the Japanese. And so in this one file, it is an eyewitness account of exactly what happened with when their ship got torpedoed. They go into great detail of what happened that day. And I tell you, some of these files, it's a real eye opener to read some of these stories. And then there's other files that have handwritten letters, the correspondence between the next of kin, usually the mother or the father, with the personnel from the Army Quartermaster Corps, or just with the Army about the disposition of the remains. And some of the letters in there, I mean, they're a little tough to read because, the mother is asking, this government official, how did my son die? Where did he die? Did my son suffer? And so some of these are, they're a little bit difficult to read, but it's history, and these, I feel it's important that people know, how these guys died, what they went through.
People think about it, but it's until you actually read one of those burial files or understand one
What
of
the
the
sacrifice
actual
is.
stories that it becomes real, especially for people who aren't veterans or have never been in the service. So I think that
Absolutely.
is truly amazing that that's just public access for everyone.
That's right. I mean, we'll say history isn't buried. I mean, history was paid for.
And
Right.
Mark, I believe
Yeah.
it was you that said that a service member dies twice. Once in the field when they actually die and when people forget their
Yep.
names. And so that you have done a phenomenal job at
Well, thank you.
making sure that those names aren't forgotten. So much so that that speech of a service member dies twice has carried throughout this whole year
Sure.
of being
Mhm.
able to present to people why the importance, especially nowadays, because the population of individuals that served has came down
Dwindled.
drastically. You look at
Mhm.
Vietnam,
Sure.
17%. World War II, 47% of the country was drafted. 80% of the country was towards war efforts.
Sure.
Nowadays, you don't have that, and so that we know, that our country goes to war, service members go to war, but because it's not, not everybody's neighbor is off, doing that. People kind of slowly forget what that sacrifice looks
Mhm.
like, or that the meaningfulness of defending our country.
Sure.
And I think you've done an extremely well job at preserving that information. And like you said, a lot of those things are very hard to read because it does come from an emotional state.
Absolutely.
I think a lot of us forget, back then you had snail mail. You
Mhm.
almost
Right.
had, Paul Revere bring in your mail in some
Yeah.
places. And so, information now is so instantaneous,
Mhm.
and so
And it's easily erased.
and it's so easily erased. Well, again, you've done a great job of making sure
Yeah.
that doesn't happen.
Yeah. And it's not about digging up the past, like I talk about like the Harrison Maru and, the Japanese hell ships. It's not about in any way a derogatory, it's more about, telling the history.
Right.
These
The
were,
account.
I mean, these were people, right? I mean,
Yeah.
they had families, they had loved ones just like we do, and they went off and they served their country. And I think
Right.
in some ways telling the truth, how they died. And sometimes, yes, it can be graphic, but that's war. That's the reality behind it, and I think in many ways, by being honest and being truthful about their story is a way to honor them. Right.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then having that platform there with the database with all their
Mhm.
information, and eventually you'll have stories
Yes.
written in there. So we don't have to go through and
Yeah.
look through 50 files, or no, that some of
Yeah.
them don't have 50 files.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
if someone
So-
were to want to kind of achieve what you're doing from McHenry County in another location, like let's say Wisconsin, or another
Sure.
state would like to look at
Sure.
that type of, where would they start
Yeah,
to do that?
it's interesting you say that because I had a conversation with a lady from Virginia this morning, and she was, we were talking about, that the hope was that this would be a format that other counties could follow.
Right.
Mhm.
And I will be honest with you, it every step has been a difficult one, because even creating the website, like I had to learn WordPress, right? So I had to figure out like what's the platform for the website, and so just creating the website itself was a monumental challenge. And then, learning about all these different types of files, how to, you've got, if you go to the archives, you have to get a researcher's card, you have to fill out obviously the proper forms to obtain the files, and then some are electronic, some you actually have to go down to the archives to scan them, and some of the files can be rather large. I've scanned some files are 300 plus pages,
Wow.
and it's all a process of even how you scan a file, the way you touch the document, the way you handle it, the different type of medium that the document is it a photograph? Is it a piece of microfiche? I mean, it's a whole nother venture, just, learning that whole process. But I would, my hope is that other counties will take on the same mission, that we've done with McHenry County Gold Star Legacies.com, and really get to know the history of their county, not just the name. I mean,
Right.
and that's good. I mean, that's a start, right? But it's more about just the name. It's about their story, so.
Yeah. Now you mentioned the flag, the Gold Star flag. When will people be able to see the flag?
So we have an event October 3rd at the Dole Mansion in Crystal Lake. So that event will be the unveiling of the McHenry County Gold Star Service flag. So it's in the works at this point. I was very fortunate to meet a lady in Woodstock, and she actually volunteered to make the service flag for us.
Wow.
And so the flag will be 8 feet high, 5 foot wide, and it will have embroidered, we'll have all the names of the wars. And then under each name of the war will be the number of gold stars of the fallen, from that.
Wow.
That's amazing.
back
Wow.
is that going, and is that all the way up till present
World
time?
War
Sure.
One.
Yeah. So from
Oh
World
my
War
God.
One to present day, and the
Wow.
reason World War One was when the service flag came into being. So, and there's room at the bottom of the service flag too, because we don't know what the future holds. Right. Yeah.
Well,
And we're still
thank you.
uncovering. Yeah. I mean, we're still uncovering, they printed this list, and it wasn't just a few weeks ago. I got a name from Joey's, the commander of the American Legion in Harvard, and he's walking through the cemetery, and they put American flags on Memorial Day, and he came across, a headstone. Last name the guy was King, and he appears on no list, and that's ever been published. And sure enough, I looked him up, and he was killed in Belgium. So so we're still adding
Wow.
stars to the service flag. So
Wow. Well,
Yeah.
thank you so much for doing that. I think that is so important to remember
Mhm.
and to
Absolutely.
document this
Mhm.
this
Absolutely.
information, and thank you for, having a day for people in the whole county to come together
Yes.
and to honor and remember
Yes.
all those that have served and fallen.
Once again, that is
So-
October 3rd. That is going to be a Saturday, so no reason for you to miss it. 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yep, at the Dole here in Crystal Lake. So
Very good. Well, thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time. What is it? Like, share, and subscribe if you liked what you heard.
And Mark, thank you again
You're
for coming on the
Wow.
show.
Yes.
Thank you for having me. And thank you for what you guys do. It's tremendous. Tremendous.